Last week I shared a video on how to design your very own sampler blanket, and I had several requests to share more information on the sampler that I made for the video. So today I'm going to be breaking down row by row the stitches that I used and how to make them. Whether you're wanting to replicate the pattern directly or just learn some new stitches, I hope this video will help. For the sample that you see here, I created my chain using a multiple of 2 and 3. And that just means that the number 2 and 3 can be divided into that chain count. Even though that helped a lot as I was picking out stitches, I still ended up using stitches that didn't fit that multiple exactly. You can still make these stitches fit with a little tweak here and there if you really want to use them. So with all of that said, create a chain using a multiple of 2 and 3 if you're following this pattern directly. When you've reached your desired length, add 3 more chains to count as your turning chain. For row 1, I did a row of half double crochets, working into the 4th chain from the hook, create your first half double, and then continue adding a half double crochet into each chain across. For my samplers, I actually started with a chainless foundation of half double crochets. If you're not familiar with how to do that, I'll add a little info card here so you can check out a tutorial. This really helps with tension issues, so I'd highly recommend it. Either way, fasten off or attach your next color, flip your work, and we're ready for row 2. For rows 2, 3, and 4, I worked the plaid stitch or the mini plaid stitch. Fasten on however you like best into the first stitch and chain 3. This is going to serve as your first double crochet now and throughout. Next, create a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Chain 3. Skip 3 stitches and work a double crochet into the 4th stitch. Add a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. And repeat the sequence all the way across. Chain 3, skip 3, add a double crochet into the next 3 stitches. When you reach the end, add a single crochet to the very last stitch. If it looks like you're off by 1, don't worry about it. This was a bit of a fudge to make the pattern work. Fasten off, flip your work, and attach your next color, or you can join your next color before you finish row 1. To do that, pull the stitch back until you have 2 remaining loops on your hook. Bring in your next color, pull your yarn through, and now you've finished that last stitch and joined your new color. Chain 3 and turn. If you're fastening on at the beginning of the row, I would recommend that you fasten onto the top of the previous stitch. This will look neater in the long run. Next, add a double crochet into the top of the 2 stitches below. Chain 3, and then work a double crochet into the next 3 stitches from the previous row. Chain 3 again, and repeat the sequence. When you reach the end, add a single crochet into the very last stitch. You can either fasten off or join your next color and flip your work. When I fasten on like this, I like to join into the base of the previous stitch. I think it just looks a little bit neater that way. It makes the double crochets stand more in line together. Fasten on however you like best and chain 3 to serve as your first double crochet, and add a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Since this is the last row, we're going to be doing this a little bit differently. Instead of doing a chain 3, we're going to do a single crochet into the top of the previous 3 double crochets. And then continue on as normal, 3 double crochets into the top of the previous 3 stitches. And then a single crochet into the top of the next 3 stitches. And continue all the way across. Fasten off, flip your work, and now we're ready for row 5. For row 5, I just worked single crochets all the way across using white. This is to help give a break between all the colors. This is also a great time to get your stitch count back on track. If you're off by 1 or 2 stitches, you can add or decrease single crochets to get back in line. Row 6 is basically just a row of the mesh stitch. In the first sample, I made it with double crochets, and in the second, I used half doubles. I like the double crochets more, so I'll show you that here. To begin, fasten on and chain 3 to serve as your first double crochet. Next, chain 2. This is going to serve as a spacer for your double crochet. Skip 2 stitches and do a double crochet into the 3rd stitch. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches, double crochet into the 3rd stitch. Continue this all the way across. When you come to the end of the row, don't worry if you're off by a couple of stitches. I had to fudge things around again to make it work. Complete a double crochet into the very last stitch. Chain 1 and turn. For this row, I just went back across with single crochets, doing 2 single crochets into the spaces and then 1 single crochet in the top of the previous double crochet. This should keep your stitch count accurate, but don't worry if it's not. You can either add or decrease here or wait until the next row. And now we're back to single crochets in a neutral color, in my case white. Again, I like to use this opportunity to get my stitch count back on track. The next 3 rows are dedicated to the bobble stitch in a contrasting color. For this first row, we're going to be doing all double crochets across. Important tip here, you want to make sure you're working on the right side of your blanket because we're going to need to be on the wrong side when we're actually creating the bobbles. So fasten on, making sure you're on the right side, chain 3 to serve as your first double crochet, and then create a double crochet in each stitch across. Chain 1 and turn. This is not your first stitch, we're just using it for wiggle room. We're getting ready to create our bobbles, so double check that you are on the wrong side of your project. This is because your bobble is going to naturally poke out to the other side, and we want it to poke out onto the right side. We need to carry the yarn that we're going to be using for our bobbles, so go ahead and bring that in now. In the very first stitch, create a single crochet, making sure to trap that yarn in with it. Create 2 more single crochets into the next 2 stitches, making sure that the yarn is tucked underneath. And now we're ready to create our first bobble. Take your working yarn and pull it to the front and pick up your bobble yarn. To create a bobble, we're going to be doing 5 double crochets together into the next stitch. Take your yarn and wrap it around your hook, going into the stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, and pull through 2. Let's do that again. Yarn over, going into the stitch, pull your yarn through, pull through 2. Again, yarn over, into the stitch, pull through 2. Continue doing this 2 more times. Once you have 5 loops on your hook in the bobble color, you're ready to join it all together. Drop the bobble color and grab your main color again. Yarn over and pull through all 6 loops. Tug on the ends a little bit here to make everything nice and snug. And then create a single crochet into the next stitch, again making sure to trap the bobble color yarn. Create 2 more single crochets. So essentially you're going to be creating a bobble after 3 single crochets. Bring your main color yarn to the front, grab your bobble yarn, yarn over, going into the next stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, into the stitch, pull your yarn through, pull through 2. Continue on until you have 5. You should see a total of 6 loops on your hook. Drop your bobble yarn, grab your main color again, yarn over, pull through all 6 loops, create a single crochet into the next stitch, making sure to trap that bobble yarn again. And just continue doing this all the way across. When you come to the end of the row, chances are you won't see 3 stitches remaining. Don't worry about that. Just do your single crochets into the remaining stitches. For example, I have 4 remaining here. Chain 2 or 3 and turn. You can either let this serve as your first double crochet or create a double crochet into the very first stitch. Create a double crochet in all of the stitches across, including the ones behind the bobble. This should give you your accurate stitch count, but don't worry, we're doing single crochets after this. And like I just mentioned, here we are again at another row of single crochets in a neutral color. Next up are 2 rows of granny clusters. Fasten on and chain 3 to serve as your first double crochet. Skip 2 stitches and create a granny cluster into the 3rd stitch. That's 3 double crochets. Skip 2 chains and add a cluster into the 3rd stitch. Continue this all the way across with this sequence. Cluster, skip 2, cluster. When you reach the end, you'll notice here you probably won't end with 3 stitches. That's okay. Just add a double crochet into the top of the last stitch. Fasten off and turn your work. To begin the next row of clusters, fasten on into the space between the first space from the previous row. Chain 3. This is going to serve as your first double. Then 2 more double crochets to complete your cluster. Continue across, adding a cluster into each space. Once you're finished with this row, your stitch count should be back on target. Fasten off and get ready for your next row, which is just a row of half double crochets. Fasten on with 2 or 3 chains to serve as your first half double crochet, and continue on with the rest of the row with half double crochets in each stitch. For rows 16 and 17, we're going to be doing the shell stitch. To begin, fasten on with a single crochet into the first stitch. Skip 2 stitches and add 5 double crochets into the 3rd stitch. skip 2, and add a single crochet into the third stitch. This is going to anchor down your shell. We're going to continue the sequence all the way across. Skip 2, add 5 double crochets into the next stitch, skip 2, and add a single crochet into the next stitch. Once you reach the end, you'll probably notice that you might be off by a stitch. Don't worry about it. Just add a single crochet into the last stitch on your row. Fasten off and turn your work, or you can add your next color now. Either way, we want to start with a chain 3 for the next row. This is going to serve as your first double crochet. Add 2 more double crochets into the same stitch. We're creating a half shell on the side. Next, add a single crochet into the third stitch, the top of the shell. Next, add 5 double crochets into the space between the previous 2 shells. Add a single crochet into the third stitch of the next shell and continue the sequence across. When you come to the end, add 3 double crochets into the last stitch. Fasten off and flip your work. For this row, we need to straighten things back out, and we're going to be doing this with singles, half doubles, and doubles. If you take a closer look at the shell, this is the sequence we're going to use. For single crochets, we're going to do a double. Working our way up the shell, we're going to do a half double, single, 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 working our way back down, half double, and then in the deepest part, a double crochet. So to begin, add a single crochet into the very first stitch. Now we're going to work our way down with the sequence. Single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and now we're working our way back up the shell, half double, single, 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 half double, double. Continue the sequence all the way across. And now we're back to a row of single crochets. Again, this is a great opportunity to get the stitch count back in line. For the next 3 rows, we're going to be working the block stitch. To begin, fasten on with a single crochet into the first stitch and add another single crochet in the second stitch. Next, chain 2, skip 2, and create a single crochet into the third stitch. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and work a single crochet into the third stitch. Continue the sequence all the way across. After your last chain 2, add a single crochet in the last 2 stitches. Fasten off and flip your work. To begin, add a double crochet or a chain 3 in the first stitch. Next, add a cluster into the chain 2 space. 3 double crochets. Continue across, adding a cluster into each chain 2 space. When you reach the end, add a double crochet into the last stitch. Fasten off and turn your work. To complete our block stitch, we're going to repeat row 20, the single crochet, chain 2 single crochet row. To begin, add a single crochet into the first 2 stitches. And then again, chain 2, and this time you can add your single crochet in between the previous clusters. A little tip here, if you're finding that the chain 2 is working too tightly for you and pulling your work in, you can go up to a chain 3. but just be aware that will affect your chain count later on. When you come to the end, again, 2 single crochets in the last 2 stitches. Fasten off and flip your work. Row 23, we're back 2 single crochets just to straighten out our stitch count and bring in a neutral color. Row 24, I repeated the mesh stitch. Row 25, single crochets across in the same color. Row 26, 27, 28 was the bobble sequence. Row 29 was a single crochet across in a different color this time just to switch things up. And to complete my sample, I added half double crochets to match row 1. If you missed my first video on how to design a sampler blanket, I'll go ahead and link it here now so you can check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.